So
this is our bonus session for Proverbs, which has been really fun. And yeah, by the way, David, I just wanted to share one of the things that I just found so striking last week is, this that some of the I loved how you highlighted some colloquial phrases in Hebrew that are used all the time that have their origins in some of the proverbs that we would never know because that was so fun to get a window into some of that. I'm gonna push this to Facebook and then we'll get going. You can chat among yourselves. Give me one moment.
well, a comment that pertains to that last point you made about speaking Hebrew. I was super, super fortunate that I went to Israel in 10th grade for the year. And I'm not even sure how it came out. Um, but my folks and I, we just agreed. I can remember when Emil Jacobi, Zichrono Livacha, came over to the house to talk about different programs. And it was decided. I took 10 years on my own. I went to Israel with a group of other American kids from the conservative movement. It was a Solomon Schechter program. And it was the second year of this program, and they discontinued the program probably because 23 kids, three came back Orthodox and 20 came back secular. So it wasn't a terrible success for the conservative movement. But I landed in a place called Givat Washington, and we had a Hebrew teacher who was phenomenal in that she and the head of the program, a man named Chaim Perry, who's actually well known in Israel today, kind of one of the major allies of the Ethiopian Aliyah. Chaya, I don't remember what Chaya's last name was. They taught us a Niv every day. Niv, Nun Yud Bet, which is a phrase, a fable, a phrase, an axiom. Other, I got this great, not only vocabulary, words, but this knowledge of this higher literary kind of Hebrew to use these things. And when came back to Israel 2 years later, but in the yeshiva in the army, people would often raise their eyebrows at something I would say, like, why would you know that Shakespearean kind of it's only it's only afterwards that in study of I mean some I knew were in Proverbs, but the more I study Proverbs, the more I find many of those expressions. So that's where they're that so I was just really super fortunate. Um, okay.
And, and I just want to say, David, before you start, hang on a second. So telling we're very excited. We'll have some great opportunities to learn with David over the course of the year, talking about bringing him in for Shabbos, like to Orange County, for those of you who actually live in Orange County. Also, really excited about that. And also, just to say that, those of you, many of you support the Collaborative and Advanced Learning Institute, and we really appreciate that. Some of you make donations throughout the year, like on a quarterly basis or whatever, and we are so grateful, and that's what makes this program possible. And look forward to, um, uh, well, in some ways, this is the first of the year, right? Because Nissan is the first of the year, so another great year of from liberation to learning, or learning through liberation, or yeah, liberation through learning is what I want to say, is what I hope can happen for all of us this year. And just want to tell you how much we appreciate your support. And take it away, David. Thank you.
And thank you for the opportunity, Rabbi Marcia, and all of you who I've seen over the last few years. Woke up without a voice the other day, so I'm speaking low. If you can't hear, just say to me, I'll try. I don't have a different microphone, but I'll try to speak louder. We're going to begin with a story. And the story is, I think I'm around 10 years old, maybe 9 years old. I'm at Hebrew school at Adat Ariel, which may have still been VJCC at the time in North Hollywood. And I had trouble reading Hebrew. And I still have some minor dyslexia. I think both when I'm asked to read out loud, both in Hebrew and English, I've gotten over it, but I used to be super, super stressed about it. And so a, a, a knock comes on the door of the Hebrew school door. We had Hebrew school 3 times a week. Knock comes on the door, and it's Dr. Jacoby, who I mentioned beforehand. And he comes in, he talks to the teacher quietly, And the teacher says, okay, David, and I don't remember her name, but it was a girl in the Hebrew school class who I remember not wanting to be with, but we were taken out of the class and brought to an office, a side office, where Victor Gross, who at the time was a rabbinical student at JTS, now he's a renewal rabbi in Boulder. He ended up getting kicked out of JTS. I think he's actually proud of this. I think he got kicked out for smoking grass, and this was the late 60s. And he says, well, you two are here because you need help with your Hebrew reading. And so there were these prayer books on the side, these Shiloh prayer books, if you know them, these big letters. We all use them at camp. We use them in Hebrew school. And he says, open up to page 37. So I open up to page 37 and he says, read. And I start reading. Eshet Chayil mi imtza berachok mimifnim michra, batach le bala. He says, whoa. You know how to read perfectly. Go back to class. Well, he didn't know that in my house we said Eshet Chayil every Friday night. So I knew it because of my listening. I knew it because I almost knew it by heart. And so I was saved by the bell. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe that wasn't a good thing. But that's my earliest Asian Chayil story. And my parents, who my mother grew up nominally Orthodox or traditional from Sioux City, Iowa, and moved to LA. My father had Orthodox, regular Polish Orthodox Ashkenazic parents, not Hasidic, whom he rebelled against and wasn't that practicing. And they began to practice things together other than, say, kosher. They always had a kosher home. They always lit Shabbat candles. But when the children, there's three of us. I have a brother who's 3 years older, a sister 3 years younger. When we started to, as we were growing up, we started to go to Camp Ramah as well. We brought things home. While we always had Kiddush, we started to say Birkat Hamazon, the grace after the meals. And at some point therein, around my pre-10 age, we started to say Eshet Chayil. And so it went. And so it went. And I became Orthodox in like 1971 or so. I went away to Israel in 71, 72, 73. And I came back very, very Orthodox. And when I came back, sitting at Shabbat table for 2 years in the 11th and 12th grade, I would always argue with my father. Good-spirited, respectful argument, but always arguing about Jewish theology, philosophy, history, all sorts of things. And my father was a lawyer, very, very well read, very well educated. Both my parents very well educated from a Jewish point of view. And I noticed we weren't saying Eshet Chayil anymore. So I said, Dad, what's up? How come we're not doing Eshet Chayil? He says, that's a man's definition of a role for a woman. That defines for the woman what her role is, not what the woman is defining for herself. And I remember saying, but Dad, that's what mom does in our house. All those things, she does those things. You don't do them. You don't do the laundry. You don't cook the food. You work whatever. But she does all those things. Why not give her credit? It was a good-natured kind of an argument, but that's in the background of our study today. This tension between something being very, very positive from a woman's point of view, but rather questionable from a feminist point of view, at least how many of us understand feminism. That's going to be our challenge today. But before we get to the challenge, I couldn't resist bringing the first part of this chapter because it's something it's a little bizarre in the first part, and it's connected to the second part of the chapter. So if you would, unless there's any questions or comments, let me just see what this is. Okay. All right, then. Why don't we maybe raise it a bit to get the whole poem inside, all 9 verses? Okay. So, Susan, you want to start? You have a voice today, Susan?
I have the voice that I have, which is not great, but I'll read.
It's a beautiful voice, Susan.
Thank you. I just remember what it was like before I had my vocal cord issue. The words of Lemuel, king of Massa, with which his mother admonished him, "No, my son, no, O son of my womb, no, O son of my vows, do not give your strength to women, your vigor to those who destroy kings. Wine is not for kings, O Lemuel, not for kings to drink, nor any strong drink for princes, lest they drink and forget what has been ordained, and infringe on the rights of the poor. Give strong drink to the hapless, and wine to the embittered. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and put their troubles out of mind. Speak up for the dumb, for the rights of all the unfortunate. Speak up, judge righteously, champion the poor and the needy.
Okay, so let's take this apart a little bit to maybe 2, 3, or 4 pieces. I think we'll start with the most bizarre part. Who is Lemuel? Does anybody know Lemuel? And you rightfully do not know Lemuel because he's nowhere in the Hebrew Bible. And he's nowhere in ancient Near Eastern texts as well. And there's all sorts of theories as to his name. Perhaps it's a Phoenician name, this kind of a name. Lemin El, or to mean El, mean is the name of the god, mean the god. We don't know who it is. I don't know anything particularly.
Coming back, sorry.
Okay. You know what? If you want me to handle it,
Nope, I'm sorry.
okay, so that way I can also go back and forth to screen. So we don't know who Lemuel is, and we do know of a place called Massa, um, like Massa or Meriva in the wanderings in the desert. It's northern Arabia, but we don't have much we don't have much information about it here, other than whatever this is. This is a fragment of wisdom, but it is one of the only cases, the only case really in ancient Near Eastern literature where a woman is giving, a named woman, here it's his mother, but still, a named woman is giving advice. We had a lot about womanhood and the character of woman being identified with chokhmah, with wisdom. We had a lot of that. We had also the wicked women, a wicked woman, but here's a woman giving advice to her son. So that's the most interesting part. So I've said that now. Now you folks tell me what do you find in this interesting? What are the different elements you identify? Anybody, and just go ahead and speak because I don't have everybody on screen. Okay, how did let's
I
start
was
from
going to say something, Rabbi.
please go ahead, James.
One is the use of alcohol, which is kind of interesting.
Oh.
About drinking, and that it's not for really, that it does in the long run. It's no good for a successful person.
Right? Or it's certainly not for him, the king or the judge. Look at it carefully. She says to him, wine is not for kings, O Lemuel. She directs it to him, not for kings to drink, no, nor any strong drink for princes, okay, not just him, but the ruling class, lest they drink and forget what has been ordained. And here is the Hebrew word vayishkach michukak, which means that which has been inscribed. And some commentators understand that to be the law. Some understand that to be the protocol of any different case. If you're judging a case, and this is something that comes out of Hammurabi, which is a much older text, but you find this advice right here about not forgetting which is ordained in other ancient Near East. And then you'll come to infringe upon the rights of the poor. That's one. That's as far as the aristocrats are concerned, or the ruling class, or the judiciary class. But what about for the others, Gary? James, sorry, James.
Well, you can give strong drink to the hapless and wine to the embittered. It's kind of like for the people who don't like get them drunk or let them be addicted to the wine.
It's kind of right out of some dystopic movie, right? About
Yeah.
how there's
Ma-
there's fluoride in the water or something. Who know, something keeping us under control. Yeah, that was a joke. That's not what I think.
David,
There's
Yes.
that.
also, oh, I have a question. The use of like in ma bari, why is it no, my son? Why isn't it you know, what would you, my son? It doesn't make sense, the
Yeah,
use of ma here.
yeah, I understand it as kind of like ma, what? What we do sometimes, what? Now you're gonna leave me? Now you're gonna turn off the electricity? Now
I
you
see.
now you're gonna go to Israel and leave me stranded in my house by myself reading the Haggadah first night of Pesach? I,
Right.
but it's a ma. I think that's how the ma is, or we might know it from the modern Hebrew of mapitom. Yes, Sylvia.
Thank you, Rabbi. What I thought was interesting about that, yes, you can give the drink to the poor, but then it goes on and says, give strong drink to the hapless and wine to the embittered. Let them drink and forget their poverty. And in the beginning, you're saying to the kings and saying, don't infringe on their rights. But now you're saying, well, they're going to be poor and we want them to forget it for a while because, it's a hard life.
Right. So Sylvia, that's a good comment from someone who's probably raised with certain socialist ideas, I'm guessing,
You're guessing right.
right? And that justice is not a something one everybody can achieve. Justice is a what's the word I'm looking for? Every citizen deserves an even playing field. The pie needs to be cut evenly, but that those ideas, those socialistic ideas, while they may have occurred in certain ancient communities, they certainly weren't in this community. There were the poor and there were the wealthy, and it was not thought to be unjust in this circle at least.
So what you're saying then is infringing on the rights uh, of the poor has nothing to do with anything like raising them up to not being so poor.
No, what I'm saying is it's not infringing on their rights. There is no right to have money, right? There's a right to have to get the gifts that are, if we're going to do this Torah wise, okay, they have to get the corner of the field and that which is dropped and that which is left uncut, as you know, leket shichan peah. They have to get 10% the tithe during certain years, not every year. They have to get, according to the rabbis that have come just a few hundreds of years, 200 years after this text, probably, they have to be provided with wine for the Seder, 4 cups of wine. There are certain rights, but it's not a general right in the way that many of us, I'm part of that as well, believe that our job is to raise up all those who are lowly and not to ease their pain, right? I think your solution would be, instead of having them forget about their pain, let's work with them to get them to raise up their level. At least I think that's what you're saying. Yeah.
I am, and thank you very much for clarifying that for me.
Yeah, Sandra.
Right, so the part where it says, do not give your strength to women, your vigor to those who destroy kings. So the reason not to drink, in other words, you need to stay in a sane place so you don't, so you know what you're doing all the time, where drink can alter your thinking. And you give your strength to other people because they can take advantage of you if you're drinking. And your vigor to those who destroy kings. So he may not be himself, and there may be other people plotting to destroy him, and he would be in a different mindset if he was, shall we say, sober.
So I'm not sure that the woman part is necessary. Just we focus on the wine. That's an interesting thing, but I actually think that the giving strength to women is a separate issue. We're going to see in a midrash after this as well that it was certainly taken by the rabbis as a certain issue. So I'm not. Go ahead.
Rabbi, where it says, yeah, I guess as a male, it says, do not give your strength to a woman. It kind of reminds me of the Samson story, where he lets Delilah cut her hair. And I don't know, it's the way I look at Judaism a lot, but I think a lot of it is training of men to behave in the right way. And it says, do not give your strength to a woman. As a male, I think a lot of us sometimes we will do a lot for women that we love. Women move men. And I think if you give your, sometimes you have to be careful the way you give your strength to a woman. It will maybe throw you off your task. You may do the wrong thing. So I thought that was kind of an interesting line.
Yeah, there's also the verse from when Jacob talks about Reuven is his Reshit Oni, the first of my loins, the first of my sperm, for my semen, or the first of my strength. Hasar Oni means somebody who has no strength. So there could be a poetic thing about don't sleep around too much. Don't give your strength. That is your strength, what's between your legs. Don't give to women. That could be part of it. It's hard to know exactly. But the interesting thing here for us is to look in the Hebrew, Al titein lenashim chaylecha, the word chayil, which is going to come up, which here is translated as your strength. It could be vigor. We're going to go back to this word in about 10 minutes from now. I promise. Maybe I can't promise 10 minutes, but we'll go back to this word. But now, Sylvia, what we said before was poor people are poor and we have to ease their pain, their poverty. But there's another poem. It's hard to know if this is the same author, the same poem or not. According to the Masoretics, the Masoretic text, that is the dots that we have, and the way that it's laid out graphically, this is a new paragraph, is the last four. The last four contradict what I said beforehand somewhat, right? Speak up for the dumb, for the rights of all the unfortunate, speak up, judge righteously, champion the poor and the needy. That could be a different voice saying this, or this could be there are rights, but it's not a right not to be poor. We might think it's a right to have adequate. No, that's not. But there are other rights, other kinds of rights I can imagine, and you need to speak up. So this is kind for you, I think, Sylvia, maybe others. These last four lines perhaps redeem this poem a little bit, or this section a little bit. Yes, Megan.
I was about to say just what you said, that the beginning tells the king to not do anything that will take his strength or his strength away, to forget that what his purpose is to then we go down, forget the hapless and the embittered and the poverty, because it says speak up for the dumb, for the rights of the unfortunate. Your job is to speak up for them and judge them righteously and champion the poor and the needy. Then it's almost giving strong drink to the hapless. It's like sort of medication for the despair and the horribleness of poverty. Not a cure, but it doesn't feel like just get them drunk so they forget it. It feels like a save that for them, but it'll take your mind away.
I think it's kind of like football for the American public.
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting.
Okay. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. I want to get to Eishet, but I could not leave this without the rabbinic comment, which brings us to what we started this little mini series with, was the Solomonic, the Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon was the author of this book and the different titles. So if we could,
Is this good?
I've got a screen.
Can you see David?
No, I can't. I can see your screen with the Zoom. That's what I can see.
Okay, let me share again. Tell me if this is better.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so maybe you could make it bigger. I had to use a smaller font to get everything on the page. Sorry. Let's take a look at Babylonian Talmud. James, you want to read this for us?
Okay. The words of King Lemuel, the burden with which his mother corrected him. Rabbi Yohanan says, in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Uriah, this teaches that Mother Bathsheba saw Solomon engage in excessive drinking. He's bound him to the pillars to have him flogged, And she said to him, "What, my son? And what son of mine wound? And what son of my wounds?"
My vows, right. So this is the story. Remember that David lusted after Bathsheba, even though she was married to another man, Uriah or Uriah. Sent that man to be killed on the battlefield, took her to be wife. They slept with him before had adultery before that. He was still alive. The child that was born was sick, and he prayed for him. That child died, but then they came together, him and Bathsheba. This is a difficult story from a Torah law point of view, but David and Bathsheba came back together, and they had a son who they named Yedidyah, who becomes afterwards Solomon, Shlomo HaMelech. And so this is Bathsheba who maneuvered and finagled at the end of the book of Second Samuel to make sure that Solomon would be the king as opposed to one of the other brothers, not her sons. And now she's reprimanding him because he is partying too much. And if you read, say the chapters like, yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8 around there in First Kings, you see just how decadent he was and what he built and how many, 1,000 wives and thousands of horses. Anyway, she has him bound to the pillar so he could be flogged. And then she says, "No, what do you have to say for yourself?" Here's the what, Marcia, right? What, my son? And what, my son of my womb? And what, the son of my vows? So let's see how that's parsed out here in the Talmud. Go ahead with what, my son?
"What, my son? Everyone knows that your father, David, was a God-fearing man. And now, when you see him in sin, they will all say that his mother caused him to drink."
Right, they're not
And
going to.
what?
The father's not alive anymore. Now they're going to blame me for this. Go ahead.
And what, son of my womb? That is to say, with regards to all of the women of your father's house, once they conceive, they no longer see the face of the king. But I pushed and entered so that I might have a son who is strong and fair-skinned. And what son of my vows? That is to say, with regards to all of the women of your father's house, that they would take vows while they were pregnant, saying, "Let me have a son who is fit to be king." But I, by contrast, took a vow and said, "Let me have a son who is diligent and filled with knowledge of the Torah and fit for prophecy." It is not for the kings, O Moel. It is not for the kings to drink wine, nor for the princes to drink, to say, "Where is strong drink?" It is not for kings, Bathsheba said to her son Solomon. What you have to do with kings who drink wine and become intoxicated and say, "Why do we need God?"
Right? And
Nor for
why do we need God in Hebrew is lama, like lemuel, lama el, lemuel. So here's the folk etymology amongst the rabbis, how we even get to the fact that lemuel means Solomon, because they're saying to him, "What do we need God for? We're having a party. We're strong." Go ahead, finally.
nor for the princes to say, "Where is strong drink?" This means that one like Solomon, to whom all the secrets of the world are revealed, should he drink wine and become intoxicated. And there are those who say that this part of the verse should be understood as follows: one like Solomon, to whom all princes of the world rise early to come to his door, should he drink wine and become intoxicated.
The whole bit about some tradition that's out there that Solomon was a shicker, was drinking too much. I think it has to do with the opulence of the description of his wealth and in his ultimate downfall because he did marry women from foreign nations, and they are, according to the Book of Kings, the editor, at least the edited version that we have, they are the one who led him astray. And that was the end of his kingdom, really. His son took over from just Judah and Levi, and the 10 tribes were given to, if you've read the Book of Kings, you know the 10 tribes were given to his servant. And so that's the punishment. But here I brought it mostly to how could you possibly say that the Mu'el is Solomon? Number one, it's in the book of Mishlei, which is attributed to Solomon, and two, you've got this folk etymology. In no way do I mean to say that the original text meant about Solomon, not at all. If it did, it would have said so. But that's how it was massaged, and it stayed in the canon. This, the next chapter, and two sections before this chapter are recognized by modern scholarship to be late additions to the book of Proverbs. That is probably maybe 4th, 3rd century BCE. Yes, Sylvia.
What's so interesting to me is that she says to him, "What's on my womb?" I mean, really, she's with David, who has taken her in adultery and murdered her husband, and that she thinks that she's her what's going to come out of this this relationship is a bunch of great guys. I mean, righteous. I don't know, and also because I don't know enough to know how much we actually blame Bathsheba for what happened. I hope not much, but still, I mean, you do have some. We have intelligence, and I think she had some intelligence that
Yeah.
she should that you know her kids might not be so innocent. Considering what's happened in their past.
Okay. Good point. We don't. The we blaming and the we reading the story is a complex issue. The simple meaning of the text, Sylvia, in when you do read not only this story about David, but all the stories about David, David is a man who uses other women. I have a lecture series that I gave once years ago. Maybe I've done it twice, called David, the Man Who Could Not Love, which is ironic because David means love, dod, like Anila, Dodiva, Dodidi, as we'll see when we look at the Song of Songs together. And he's manipulating and using every individual, including Jonathan. And so not just women, but mostly women. And of course, but on the other hand, the rabbis in the Talmud, they totally apologize for him, saying he didn't really sin. How could you possibly say that he sinned? Of course, everybody knows that Uriah divorced Bathsheba beforehand, so he wasn't sleeping with a married woman. And the fact that David put him out in the field to be killed, well, that's because he was disrespectful to the king. And when you're disrespectful to the king, because he wouldn't come to his table, he insisted on eating with his fellow soldiers in the city when he was brought from the battlefront. Well, he disobeyed the direct order of the king. That's liable for death, and so on and so forth. So it depends on who the we are. But modern readings would say, on one hand, Bathsheba shares the blame because she consented. On the other hand, what's she going to do? What's she going to say to the king? Right? She's really powerless. Yes, Marcia.
I was going to say there's a very interesting. Um, I think it was Jim that sort of noted maybe a similarity to the story of Esther, which of course is such an exaggerated version. But she says, I mean, first of all, the way she spins David as a God-fearing man is very interesting. And then she says, "What son of my womb?" That is to say, with regard to all the women of your father's house, once they conceive, they no longer see the face of the king, meaning that women were disposable. They got one night, he had his yayas, he deflowered them, boom, on to the next one. But I pushed and entered so that I could, so that there was something about her that, just like Esther had to go to try to put herself in the right place so that the king would see her and say, "What can I do for you?" There's almost that kind of feeling in this passage of Agadah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Let's begin now, Eshet Chayil, after doing this. So the reason that I juxtapose it to as well is because the first poem is a woman's advice to a man. So it's the woman's view of a perfect man or the ideal man. This is a man's view of an ideal woman. Um, Megan, you want to read the first section for us?
What a rare find is a capable wife. Her worth is far beyond that of rubies. Her husband puts his confidence in her and lacks no good thing. She is good to him, never bad. All the days of her life she looks for wool and flax and sets her hand to them with a will.
Okay. Any comments? So I kind of broke them down randomly there. There was an attempt to break these down into by a scholar named Toy. I just picked every 4 or 5 verses and broke them down, so we wouldn't have to read all at one time. I think that each line is separate. There are some connections between this poem and the poem preceding poem, like the word chayil, eshet chayil. Here is translated capable wife. What are some of the other translations people have heard over the years?
Precious.
Precious.
Woman of valor.
Valor, yeah, you hear a lot of the valor. And that comes from the word that chayil usually is associated with military, with war, and strength. But what Fox comments here is that it means strength. And in this case, it's strength of wisdom, strength of managing wealth. It's not physical prowess so much. Somebody recently was reading and they read in something else I was doing, her worth is far beyond that of rubles. And I was thinking to myself, that's not so much. I don't think rubles are worth that much these days. Anything else?
It's interesting that they use her husband puts his confidence in her. That's, for a man to, I don't think it's the word trust, but it's almost like he feels completely part of that. His wife is completely so in tune with him that he's not worried about her being a hindrance to him or anything.
Okay, and where's the emphasis so far? In all these words that are given here, what part of life is emphasized more than anything else? What was that class
well, the husband. I mean, it's about her Baal, trust in her. She is, good to her Baal. I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
Well, what I mean, where's the arena of activity here? Where are things happening?
Married life.
Married life, or do you remember for those my age that there used to be a class at school? The boys took shop, like I had wood shop and electric shop, and the girls had
home economics.
home economics. Yeah, to me that's what this.
Yeah. But this is like yeah, I think where the Victorian idea of separate spheres came from. The women did this, the men did that. And they were, in some ways, they were trying to say that women and men were equal, but women did not, or were not permitted to move into the outside world, and males, and the men left women to their sphere.
So yeah, so that's not just that's later, that's in most of the ancient world. There seem to be 2 spheres, and we usually think of women of having no rights and being the same level as slaves, more or less, except for the perhaps, they're giving birth and this. I think we want to allow for love. Excuse me, I need to find it. But so this poem is going to fake you out a little bit, Sylvia. So keep an open mind for a second, because right now everything that's happening is in the household. And what we told her, he's we have this business about the flax, but why don't we go on to the next section and see?
I think Linda has her hand up too,
Sorry,
David.
Linda.
It's kind of the opposite of the other one. this one, it's like, trust your wife. The other one is stay away from, women that they're gonna mess you up.
Right, right. Would you read the next section, Linda, 14, 17?
She is like a merchant fleet, bringing her food from afar. She rises while it is still night, and supplies provisions for her household, the daily fare of her maids. She sets her mind on an estate and acquires it. She plants a vineyard by her own labors. She girds herself with strength and performs her task with vigor.
Hey, so this is a little bit, this is getting her out of the house, wouldn't you say, Sylvia?
Well, yes, in a way. But she is the head um of providing visions within the property of the household.
So home economics, right?
Home economics, exactly.
But then look where it says, and then she sets her mind on an estate. In Hebrew, Zamama Sadeh, Sadeh v'tikacheu. She has her eyes on a field to buy property. It's hard to understand that in a metaphorical sense. She plants a vineyard. Now, does that mean that she plants it, or does that mean she has the household workers do it? Hard to know, but these are things that we usually would think of a man involved in commerce. She's like a merchant fleet. Now that's metaphor, of course, but she's out there.
So the question then is the head of the household, is her husband like a merchant who goes uh, traveling around over the known world to trade and to buy and to sell, and she's the one at home getting the stuff ready so that he can do that.
Great hypothesis, but then again, you'll be surprised in what comes next. I love this. I love this back and forth. It's great to read people that don't know this text by heart. When you're in the more traditional world, people do know this because they've been saying it Friday night tables. Let's go on to the next one, Tamaki Tov. Um, who else would like to read? Somebody? Marcia, you want to read this?
Sure. She sees that her business thrives. Her lamp never goes out at night. She sets her hand on the distaff. Her fingers work the spindle. She gives generously to the poor. Her hands are stretched out to the needy. She's not worried for her household because of snow, for her whole household is dressed in crimson. She makes covers for herself. Her clothing is linen and purple. So interesting. Just, she is both the CEO and the janitor, like all at the same time, of her business. She sees that her business thrives. She basically works incessantly, and she's actually the one working the spindle. She's not actually, sounds like she's not hiring the laborers, or if she does, she works with them alongside. It's a very, I think these are some of the most compelling verses of the whole proverb.
Yeah, she's clearing the snow, insulating the walls, the windows. And not only that, making sure that everybody has the finest of clothes as well, with the crimson, the purple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but wait, it's coming up now. It's coming up just a second.
Purple is sheath royalty.
Yeah.
Purple.
Right. So Sylvia, why don't you read the next section? In light of your hypothesis, which was a good one, that this gives a chance for the husband to be out in the world doing business.
Okay, thank you very much. Her husband is prominent in the gates as he sits among the elders of the land. She makes cloth and sells it, and offers a girdle to the merchant. She is clothed with strength and splendor. She looks to the future cheerfully. Her mouth is full of wisdom, her tongue with kindly teaching.
Right. So the focus is on her. That's why some people even see this as an allegory for Torah, for Chokhmah, for wisdom as well, but it's a very wishy-washy one. Most people see this as directions for a woman of a stately, of a standing, a certain standing to afford this. But what's the purpose according to these? And these first two lines, they're like that's the center of this in the Orthodox world that I grew up, that I was part of when I was a teenager, right? Her husband is prominent in the gates, meaning that he's a macher,
Right.
he's a judge, and he sits among the elders of the land. He's sitting in the base medrash, learning Torah, and all that she's doing makes this possible for him. And that way,
So basically her life is centered around her husband.
right, right. And this is parallel to the custom, Marsha, I would imagine you run into it at weddings as well. There is this Hasidic custom for the groom to walk around the bride 7 times. Some conservative egalitarian Jews got a hold of this, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, maybe not even, and said, oh, well, we're egalitarian, we're not going to do that. So instead, the groom will circle the bride 3 times, the bride will circle the groom 3 times, and they'll both circle whatever. It's an absolute mess under the chuppah. That's all I can say. It came from a silly idea about the man being the center of the relationship. And I'm sorry to be so jealous.
David, correct me if I'm wrong. I think the traditional practice is that women circle the men.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say. When the women circle the men 7 times, and then when it became egalitarian, people broke it down to the woman circles the men 3 times, and the man circles the woman 3 times, and then they walk around with each other 3 times. All I can say, again, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but it's a silly custom. It means nothing to translate something which was absolutely male-centric into something egalitarian. I think it's not a good usage of time under the chuppah. The wires of the microphones get cut up and everything, the train of the dress. Okay, I vented. Now give me the counter argument, Marcia.
Well, that's what I encourage all the time, the mess that you said. That's funny. You know, for the counter argument is that I think what makes a Jewish wedding so special is that there are aspects of physical practice that happen in that you wouldn't see in another kind of wedding, and so I don't want to lose any of it. And it almost feels like a coming together dance when they circle each other at the end. So I'm all for the 3 circles, and the last one together. And I've never had a problem with the electronics.
I've probably had a problem because I wanted there to be a problem.
Okay.
Okay, a little lightheaded debate here. A light debate. Let's go on to the next section. Who's reading for us? Maybe somebody down the line.
Dad, Dad, can you see this? Maybe not. Is he not here? Oh,
I
he's there.
can read it if he's not here.
Okay,
Are we having
Sandy, you
trouble?
want to read? Sandra? Okay. David, let's see.
Sandy, would
How
you
about
like to read?
Sandy,
Yeah, 2731.
You want me, Marcia? Is he there?
She
Yeah.
oversees the activities of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children declare her happy. Her husband praises her. Many women have done well, but you surpass them all. Grace is deceptive. Beauty is illusory. It is for fear of the Lord that a woman is to be praised. Extol her for the fruit of her hand, and let her works praise her in the gates.
So what's special about this paragraph, anybody, which we didn't see until now? Or a few things are different.
Well, she's being acknowledged by her husband.
Yeah. And is God comes into the picture here as well? There's a little typo in the Hebrew in the fourth and third line. The hey got left above. It should be hiti talal in the third line.
Uh-huh.
And then there's this issue that comes up quite a bit. It did. I remember in women's Torah groups, it came up in the 80s and 90s a lot. There was even a song, Shaker Achen Vehevel Hayovi, Isha Yirat Adonai Hiti Talal. So this idea that grace is deceptive, right? It's not about how fancy and well behaved you are. It's not about your not well behaved, but how noble you behave. It's not about your looks, it's about your deeds. Yeah. So I mean that's a rather feminist in a certain context that could be seen as a feminist message here, but I'm not sure everybody would see. So now seeing all this and having decided or wanting to decide or maybe deciding whether to say it at the table Friday evening, does anybody want to chime in?
Well, first off, it's said by the head of the household. And it's said by the man, and it is male oriented, but I think what it is he's thankful to have a wife that is so good. If you go back to when you mentioned that one line, do not give your strength to a woman, and then you have this woman of valor. I think if when you find the right woman, you do so much better. And I almost think it's really for a man to say thank you for having such a beautiful wife and such that it works well for him, that the whole household is in harmony, and his life is in harmony. And I think basically it's for him to say thank you.
Well, thanks, James. You just fulfilled the dream and the intention of the editor of the book of Proverbs in the last two Proverbs. Say that's exactly why these two poems or these two sections were juxtaposition to each other because of that connection you just made there about this don't giving your strength to, and here's a woman of strength. They answer.
Can I say one other thing, Rabbi?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it comes from rabbinic literature. They say at the Shabbat meal, the bread gets a blessing, the wine gets a blessing, the candles get a blessing, the children get a blessing, and the women get a blessing. The only one who does not get a blessing on the Shabbat meal is the man.
Yeah.
And the rabbi say his blessing is that he gets to say the blessing.
Okay, so cool. Others?
Sylvia
like
has
to
a hand raised.
Thank you. I just want to say maybe in old times that's okay, but in today's world, you say we say this on Friday night when women are out having careers and expecting men to do their share in the house. What does this say? This just to me says, okay, your place is in the home, and we're thanking you for doing your place in the home. So you can go out and work, but you have all this other stuff you have to do,
Well,
and nobody's going to help you.
It's interesting, Sylvia. In some of the when I first heard this done, when I sort of re-entered the world of sort of observance and whatnot, everybody sang it. It became what by the time in the 90s, when I was learning, you go to a dinner and everyone would sing it to each other. Students would sing it to students, wives sing it to husbands, husbands sing it to wives. And there were a couple of early people at the seminary, early women rabbinical students. They created an alternative version of something to sing that was egalitarian at the table. It was a version of Eshet Chayil, but it's the but I've also seen like just everybody sings it, including the mother. Like she sings it to her husband because sometimes he takes care of the household, he takes care of her. So I've only known it in an egalitarian setting, which is very funny now that I think about it. David, what do you have to say about that?
So I'll go back to the story with my dad, and I'm still adamant because my mother was of the age of women that did not work outside of the house. Their work was raising the children, providing for my father. My father worked very hard as a divorce lawyer in Beverly Hills, came back late. There was, I truly believe my mother was doing all the things that are in this. Maybe she wasn't doing the investments that implies here, but all these things. But then, so when we got married in 1981, of course, it was just the two of us. I would sing this to Sasha. And we continued until about the mid 80s when I began to, towards 86, yeah. So I started to go to Mavakshei Derech, which is a Reconstructionist like synagogue in Jerusalem. And I started to practice in my own mind egalitarian Judaism and kind of really broke away from Orthodox practice in that way. And then we stopped saying it. We haven't said it ever since. Maybe once or twice we'll do it if somebody's at the house that I know it's important for them. I know that in one of the Zmironim, one of the maybe a few of them, there's another poem, and I should have brought it. I forgot what it is. Somebody brought another text that is the counter. So the men sing Eshet Chayil and the women sing whatever the other ones, or everybody sings everything. In my recent years, folks, I'll be honest with you, I try to make life simple. We do we do Shalom Aleichem, we do Achama Merosh because we love the melody. We do Kiddush. We bless our children even when we're not there, and that's it. And we look at each other, and we often eat very quietly. So I've gotten away from the production, but I understand it. I totally understand it, and yeah, it's good that people. I don't necessarily think people need to throw out all these things, including the walking around 7 times. I think it's important for us to look at these customs and really think about what they mean for us, and that's what we've done today. Reached the end of our hour, and we didn't get to the midrash, uh, so maybe people can do this on their own. And there's a very poignant story, which is a well-known story, which personifies the Eshet Ish in the midrash. That's from the Talmud, I think. Yeah, from no, from Midrash Mishlei. The story of Rabbi Meir's Bruria and the two boys that died, and then the second section on the page. If you just scroll down for a moment, Marcia. This is from Midrash Tanchuma, and this is just one example of how Sarah was seen to be the ultimate Eshet Chayil. The ultimate woman of valor was Sarah, our mother. But, and then I'll finally say this, we can go back to the Hollywood Squares. I'll say this about Midrash, that this Midrash Mishlei, which I'm only discovering now, has an addendum to it in the same way that this chapter has been added on to the book of Proverbs at a later date. We know from the language. There's a separate midrashic text which goes through each of the lines of Eshet Chayil, assigning to a different feminine character of the Bible. Really interesting. Kind of squishes it, but to make sure they got almost every woman in, and that is a piece of the text that is not in the older manuscripts of Midrash Mishlei, so it was added on afterwards. And that in itself is an interesting thing as well.
Where is that? What is that what you included in there?
No, because that would have taken much longer, and I wanted to limit it to 3 pages. But so what I added at the end about Sarah, that's just one example. There's about Rivka and Rachel and Leah and Yocheved and Zipporah and Yael, etc., etc.
Okay, very interesting. Well, hang on for 1 second. I want to the Hollywood Squares. This was great. I hope you'll all join us. We're going to take a break next week. Next Monday is the second day of Passover. I'll be in synagogue, and maybe some of you will also. And we'll pick up, but we will be reading Shir HaShirim on the Shabbat. of Passover. The following Saturday, we read Song of Songs, this erotic love poem on Passover. And we'll be studying that with Rabbi Lazar on Monday the 21st and also Monday the 28th. And so I hope you'll be able to join us. It should be really fun. And I want to wish everybody a meaningful and lifting Passover. May the conversations you have at your Seders feel like a gateway to liberation from, whatever you feel is constraining you right now in your lives. And pray for the world that we'll get through this narrow time still intact. And thank you, David, for this wonderful series. Really appreciate it. Ag Sameach.
Ag Sameach. Thanks for being here.
Man,
Like,
thank
Bugs, man.